Hello and thank you for joining us on France 24. It's time for us to cast our collective eye on Africa. First up, the headlines. Despite the peace deal signed less than a week ago, fighting intensifies in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo as Rwandan-backed M23 rebels edge closer to the city of Uvira in South Kivu, prompting thousands to flee towards the border with Burundi. This as Gitega accuses Kigali of attacks on its territory and of belligerent behavior. The International Criminal Court sentences notorious Janjaweed militia leader Ali Mohammed Ali Abd al-Rahman to 20 years in prison for atrocities committed in Sudan's Darfur region in the early 2000s. The 76-year-old was convicted in October on 27 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Among the charges, murder, torture, and orchestrating rapes. And no ceremonies or parades in Tanzania's streets as the country marks its 64th Independence Day. Police and soldiers were deployed in Tanzania's commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, to prevent possible protests. Activists had called for mass mobilization to denounce the violent suppression of demonstrations around elections in October. In the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, fighting has intensified between Rwandan-backed M23 rebels and the Congolese army, supported by Burundian troops. This less than a week after Kinshasa and Kigali signed a peace deal. In recent days, the rebel group has made swift advances and threatens the city of Uvira in South Kivu. Our colleagues at the AFP news agency are reporting that some have already entered the city. However, the situation remains unclear. Uvira is right on neighboring Burundi's doorstep, who has accused Kigali of attacking its territory. Our regional correspondent, Juliette Monti, explains.
Burundi denounced Monday attacks by Rwanda into its territory in a border area with eastern DR Congo, where violence has once again flared. The Foreign Minister, Edouard Bizimana, voiced concern over what he described as his neighbor's provocations, claiming that Rwanda dropped bombs on its territory near Cibitoke. The strikes allegedly injured at least 2 people, including a 12-year-old child. For now, Rwandan authorities have not responded to these accusations. All this comes as the M23 rebel group makes rapid gains in eastern DRC, threatening the border city of Uvira. Local sources said hundreds of fleeing Congolese and allied Burundian soldiers have sought refuge inside Burundi as a result, with Uvira sitting across Lake Tanganyika from its economic capital, Bujumbura. Burundi views the prospect of the city falling to Rwanda-backed troops as an existential threat.
Judges at the International Criminal Court have sentenced a Janjaweed militia leader to 20 years in prison for atrocities committed in Sudan's Darfur conflict in 2003. Ali Mohammed Ali Abd al-Rahman, also known as Ali Kushaib, was convicted in October on 27 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Among the charges include murder, torture, and orchestrating rapes carried out by Janjaweed militias more than 20 years ago. Prosecutors fought for a life sentence for the 76-year-old, describing him as an axe murderer and an enthusiastic perpetrator of the abuses. At this stage, it is unknown if either the defense or the prosecution will appeal the verdict. Our Netherlands correspondent, Fernande van Tetz, reports.
20 years is the sentence handed down by the International Criminal Court here in The Hague to Janjaweed leader Abd al-Rahman, also known as Abu Kushaib. He is convicted for murders and rape and torture that took place in 2003 and 2004 in the Darfur region of Sudan. He was convicted in October on 31 counts of war crimes and crimes against humanity. And the judge outlined here today how he personally killed 2 people with an axe, as well as ordering his Janjaweed militia to murder and rape. Now, this sentence of 20 years, if he serves it 2/3 of it, which is what usually happens, he will be out by the time he's 86. He's currently 76. Victims here had asked that he not be allowed to return to Sudan. We'll have to see if that happens. However, they said it's also really important that this is the first time that is recognized that the violence that took place in Sudan wasn't just intertribal, that it was in a more organized fashion. Now, this is also a first because it's the first case that was referred to the court by the UN Security Council. Sudan is not a signatory of the Rome Statute. It is not a member of the court, so usually the court doesn't have jurisdiction there. However, in 2005, the UN Security Council referred the events taking place in Darfur since 2002 to the court. And in addition to this case, there's 5 other cases the court is hoping to prosecute, but some of the suspects, including former President Omar al-Bashir, remain at large. Now, all of this makes it very relevant today with the horrific violence in Sudan, because the court still today only has jurisdiction over what goes on in Darfur.
The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, says more advances by the paramilitary rapid support forces could trigger another exodus across the Sudanese border. The RSF captured the city of El Fasher in Darfur late October, one of its largest gains in the 2.5-year civil war with the Sudanese army. On Monday, the group announced they captured the country's largest oil field, located in the Kordofan region. The United Nations believes the latest wave of some 40,000 people fleeing were displaced by the violence in Kordofan. The war has already uprooted nearly 13 million people, a third of Sudan's population, causing the world's largest humanitarian crisis. Antonia Kerrigan tells us more.
When the paramilitary rapid support forces finally seized the city of Al Fasher in October, families were torn apart, more than 100,000 were displaced, and some of them ended up here at Al Daba camp.
We lost our brothers and sons. Our children are missing and went different ways. I have 4 sons. None of them is with me. Everyone went a separate way.
This is a drop in the ocean of Sudan's humanitarian crisis. Nearly 12 million have been driven from their homes, about a third of whom have left to neighbouring countries. A crisis to which the United Nations say they are now barely responding, lambasting donor states' growing apathy in a year of cuts. This as the war rages on in the Kordofan region, where the RSF has its sights on oil fields, gold mines and various army barracks. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees met with some of those displaced from Kordofan and Al Fasher.
People are fleeing this advance of the RSF, and their stories are unfortunately all the same. Rape, murder, forced recruitment of children, separation of families, and sheer robbery.
Both the army and the RSF have been accused of war crimes in a civil war that broke out in April 2023.
Tanzania's streets were empty on Tuesday as the country marked its 64th Independence Day. The country's economic capital, Dar es Salaam, was under tight security following a ban on demonstrations imposed by the authorities. Activists have called for mass mobilization to denounce the violent suppression of demonstrations around elections in October. Laurent Berstecher has the story.
Deserted roads and empty streets as Tanzania celebrated its 64 years of independence. In the commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, only a handful of people dared venture outside after authorities warned any gathering or protest would be considered an attempted coup.
Today, on December 9th, 2025, the country remains calm. We continue to uphold law and order, safeguarding the lives and property of our citizens.
An impression of peace and quiet that could barely hide Tanzania's lingering post-electoral tensions. In late October, the contested re-election of President Samia Hassan with over 98% of votes triggered widespread protests that were brutally repressed by security forces. Hundreds of people were killed, according to the UN, in what's been described as the worst political violence in the country's history. Tanzanian authorities have also been accused of trying to minimize or hide the scale of the violations amid growing reports of intimidation campaigns to prevent citizens from posting footage of the violence. Human rights activists are now ringing the alarm bells over the crackdown, which has begun to spill into the online sphere.
Since around mid-November, we've documented a number of cases of people being picked up from their homes and off the streets by plainclothes men. And it's just, in my opinion, a sign that the Tanzanian authorities are increasingly intolerant of people's right to assemble.
A panel of UN experts recently described disturbing accounts of bodies disappearing from morgues and allegations of human remains being incinerated or buried in mass graves. Tanzanian authorities have denied the accusations, but have for now failed to give an official death toll of the post-electoral violence.
The West African regional bloc ECOWAS says the recent coup in Guinea-Bissau and the attempted coup in Benin, as well as escalating security challenges, have left the region in a state of emergency. This comes as the Nigerian Senate approves a request from President Bola Tinubu to deploy troops in Benin at its government request. The bloc has faced criticism over its uneven response to coups in recent years. Meanwhile, French authorities announced they had provided logistical support and intelligence to their Beninese and Nigerian counterparts to help thwart Sunday's coup attempt. Abuja is looking at several sectors to help revive its economy, and a possible solution may be its world-famous creative industry. Nigeria is known for Nollywood and producing Afrobeats music. However, it also stands out in video games production, fashion, and transmedia publishing, very often based in Lagos. Our correspondent Chinwe Osund sent us this report.
Hugo Obi is one of the pioneers of Africa's smartphone video game industry. His company, Milio Games, signed a license with Disney Studios in 2024. His creatives mirror the high production values that have fueled the reputation of Nigeria's music industry.
We're not taking anything for granted. We have to pay very close attention to detail. We have to follow global standards. We have to think about our player base, not just as people within our locality, but people around the world.
Uche Anisiuba runs a 3D animation studio in Lagos. His latest project is building an immersive digital world and uses AI to craft characters drawn from conversations with real people.
A most excellent question, and one I shall answer with the...
But the idea is it's a dream to be able to, first off, do what you love, and to be able to have something in your mind, have the tools and the technical know-how to bring it to reality. It's just been amazing.
Delivering 2,500 movies every year, Nollywood has become one of the biggest drivers of Nigeria's creative economy. Emma Idosio belongs to the new wave of filmmakers shaping her industry's future. The competition is only getting more fierce. More productions are making it to cinema screens and showing in international festivals. Working in Lagos can be tough, but Ella knows it's worth it.
I went to film school in the U.S., but I refused to stay back in the U.S. because Nigeria, the industry was growing, and it was so easy for me to break into the industry. So yes, we have problems, but yes, there's a hunger for fresh talent, there's a hunger for innovation, and Nigerians accept change very easily.
In 2023, Nigeria's creative and cultural industries employed more than 4 million people and contributed around $200 million to GDP. But many founders here say that with better infrastructure and funding, the sector's potential far outstrips that figure.
And finally, Cape Towners are decking the halls ahead of Christmas and New Year celebrations. One house in particular is standing out, dressed to the nines in thousands of bright lights, becoming somewhat of a local attraction. The property is lit with LED strips, illuminated figures, and a large Christmas tree for 2 hours every night. The house joins other festive installations across Cape Town, where street poles and public spaces are decorated for the holiday season.
This looks so good and pretty. And I like it because we never had snow here in South Africa.
I feel very impressed, and I think next year I'm coming in earlier to see more.
For the moment, stay tuned to France 24. More news still to come.